what can we do for you? And I had an entire presentation ready. So not only am I coming into the meeting with whatever I originally had a concern with, now I'm giving them something else that they need to make sure they follow up on. And it's so important because like I said, as a voting member of society, you have the power to put them or take them out of those positions. And so you have to use what power you have to make sure that they know that you mean what you say and you say what you mean. So I just wanted to give you props for that one. But for today, I'm going to go over some of the grassroots perspective of approaching social justice. And so the three things that I'm going to talk about in these next few minutes is going to be how to plan a march or rally, the importance of advocacy, and what is needed for change. And so I know, Lucas, you touched on some of those, and so I'll just give my own perspective and a couple of examples of how, all of that works for us. So my name is Ruth Leonard. I am a dark brown complected Black woman. I am wearing a black tank top with a red, gold, and brown necklace. My hair is in a pulled back afro, and I am wearing leopard color earrings with a silver nose ring. And I'm a member of the Community Solidarity Response Network of Toledo, and we like to exist as the local chapter of Black Lives Matter. So when you are planning a march or a rally, your main concern needs to be the 5 W's: who, what, where, when, and why. So the who is, of course, who is going to be directly affected by this action. And when you identify who's directly affected, they need to be at the table of planning and execution. So many times, I think that there is this need to, in essence, be the savior or the change agent for everything that's happening in this world, that the people who are directly affected by it are often left out because we feel as though, we know what's going on and we know how to fix it and we know how to change it, when they offer their own unique and important perspective. And the people who are most directly affected can often give you perspectives that are well beyond what you could think or imagine was their concern. So make sure that you are keeping people who are directly affected at the forefront of your planning and execution. The next one is what? What is the purpose of this particular event, this march, this rally? Of course, when you're planning something, you have what your goal is for all of the attendance. But oftentimes I've come to realize that you're leaving out action steps. So you have an event and it's a great moment in the day, in the week, in the month, in the year, and everyone feels great about it, but they don't have a next step. You're not giving them something to do to further the cause. So make sure whenever you're planning a rally or any sort of activity that you give people something to do. You give them homework. You make sure that you encourage them to either tell 3 people about the action that you did that day and encourage them to produce that same type of event. Or you have them go to fill out a petition, or you have them contact their local legislator. Where the event takes place is paramount. So for all of the work that CSRN does, it's rooted in social justice. And we have to be very careful, though, of reimagining what a particular location means to the people who are directly affected. And so one of the ways that we realize that is we had an event where we were talking about creating a civilian review board. And what we wanted to do was invite 2 people who were directly affected by the actions of the police. And we wanted to take them back to the scene of where everything had happened. It was a very public event. But we also wanted to make sure that bringing the individuals back who are directly impacted by this action was not going to recreate the trauma. And so you have to have those conversations again of involving people who are directly affected with making sure that if you're going to talk about the significance of a location, that the people who were directly impacted by that location are not being re-traumatized. And again, that happens when you take the role as the head person of a particular activity and you're not putting the directly affected person in the forefront. The next thing would be the why. And that's the last thing. Why? Why are you doing this? Why are you involving people? Why are you gathering people? And of course, this has happened before COVID, where we were able to gather large amounts of people in order to affect change. Remember, though, when you are talking about social advocacy, oftentimes you are 2 or more years ahead of the curve. We have been crying out Black Lives Matter for over 6 years. And it took hundreds of Black men, women, and children being murdered by the police. It took a global pandemic for people to wake up and recognize that what we are stating is not hate speech. It's not exclusionary. It's not race-based exceptionalism. It is the fact that Black lives matter. And therefore, in order to get to this point where we are in 2020, we had to start in 2014 by ourselves a lot of the times, speaking into an echo chamber a lot of the times, making sure that people understood why we were doing what we were doing, and that our passion for this rallying cry was so much more than the appearance of popularity. So, when it comes to social justice advocacy, a lot of times you're dealing with forgotten members of society. So we went to the jail just a couple of weeks ago because we wanted to register confined citizens to vote. And oftentimes when we talk about the Get Out the Vote initiative, the confined citizens are often left out of the conversation. And so once again, we're 2 years ahead of the curve of making sure that confined citizens have the right to vote, while also protesting and rallying and holding marches so that we can end confined citizens as a part of America's history or a part of America's reality. That takes me into the importance of advocacy. So advocacy is public support for a particular cause or policy. And that doubles back to knowing that you are standing in your truth. You are standing in the fact that you believe what you are doing is important enough that you're willing to risk your name, your brand, whatever it is, to be on the right side of history. Now, will you always get it right? No. There will be some things that you'll stand up for that in 5 or 10 years, you may realize that you don't stand in that same perspective. But there are other things, such as acknowledging the importance of the humanity of any group of people. Acknowledging their humanity should be the golden rule, if you will. And when you are able to stand up for someone who either is scared to speak for themselves or doesn't know what to say when they speak up for themselves or doesn't know how to gather a group of people, the first thing is that you educate and inform. Because at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you are giving the information to the people in a way that they can not only digest it and understand it, but they can also teach it to someone else. You want to give people information that is palatable enough that they can reiterate it, right? This falls into speaking about what you're passionate about. I read somewhere that if you can't explain something in 2 minutes or less, you don't understand it well enough. And I agree with that on some point, but then I also disagree with it because there are lots of things that I can explain it in 2 minutes. But if I'm going to really tell you why I'm doing this and I want you to understand the impact of this action, it's going to take more than 2 minutes. It's going to take me telling those stories of getting that passion from myself to you. And then you have to give up your platform. You have to give up your platform. A lot of times, like I said in the beginning, you may think that you're the expert on what someone else needs, but they can tell their story themselves so much better than you can. You can only tell what you know. They can tell so much more. They can give so much more of themselves and create a truly humanistic experience that you are moved to action. And that goes to what's needed to lobby change. So small communities can make global differences. And the first person that I often think of is Malala. Oh gosh, I'm getting her name wrong. Malala. And I knew her name. I knew how to pronounce it exquisitely when I was teaching, and I haven't said her name in so long. So I apologize to Malala. But her story started with just her speaking out and acknowledging the pain and the trauma that she went through in order to receive an education. And her one story helped to give voice to hundreds of other stories. And it changed the world because she wasn't afraid to speak out. But she was also given a platform where she could tell her own story. And when you look at what's needed to lobby change, yes, you have to go and speak to politicians. You have to be able to summon the courage to know that they are no better than you and you're no better than them. They just got people